So there has been a lot of commentary surrounding pick-me girls, who they are, what they want, what their intentions are, how society has formed them. And I would like to talk a little bit about the sort of pick-me of my generation in the 90s and aughts, the mentality of I'm not like other girls, and how this mentality kind of shifted and adapted, and even though it's a different narrative, it kind of manifests in the pick-me. So from where did the idea of I'm not like other girls derive? Well, at least from my perspective and what I saw when I would express I'm not like other girls, it was really manifesting from media, essentially, and this kind of one-dimensional depiction of women and girls that we often saw in media, that it inculcated this idea in society in general that this is what women and girls are like, that we are this one-dimensional kind of caricature of a human, that we have very delineated interests, and that we're not very intelligent, and essentially our depiction is just very, very limited. It doesn't express emotional depth, it doesn't express intellect, it's just very, very narrow. This essentially creates this kind of prejudice against us, in a sense, that going into a conversation with a new individual, they already have these notions about who you are and what you're like and the extent of your knowledge and capabilities as a result of this media and what they've consumed up to that point, that they take it with them and they bring it forth when they're talking to you. So their automatic assumption about you as a woman is that you're lacking in some capacity. And to counter that, we have to prove ourselves different than the narrative that they already have about us. We have to dispel this idea, this caricature of a one-dimensional person just to prove our humanity, just to prove that we're capable and earn the respect that male counterparts are automatically given. I think this kind of correlates to mansplaining too. It's a controversial topic and term. In general, the idea that a person automatically assumes that you're not as well versed in a subject that you really are, where does that derive? And I think it comes from this kind of inculcation, this knowledge, this societal standard that has raised us all to perceive women as something that we're not. So it makes sense then that men would think, this person doesn't know anything about engineering, so the topic comes up, let me explain it to her. Like, it just makes sense because the automatic presumption is that we don't know something and that we have to then turn around and constantly prove ourselves and prove the falsity of that notion. As men, it's the opposite. We go into conversations assuming that a man knows something and we're surprised when they don't, and we shouldn't have to consistently prove ourselves to men in order to earn that respect that we naturally deserve, or at least the assumption of neutrality in our understanding and our capabilities. Just enter into a conversation with neutral expectations, not negative expectations about our capabilities and knowledge. Because I'm tired of going into a conversation with a guy and him being like, I'm surprised you know this. Why? What about me makes you surprised? Your automatic assumption about me on the basis of how I look or my gender expression that told you I wouldn't know this fact. You're talking to a guy, would you say the same thing? Probably not, because your automatic assumption would not be that that man has a lack in his knowledge. But because I'm a woman, that's the assumption. And I would have to prove or surmount that negative perception. So for me, growing up in the 90s, what I would do is essentially I would overcompensate, in a sense, that I would adopt more demonstratively and traditionally masculine kinds of interests and things and dress just to prove that I was a multidimensional person, in a sense. So I kind of disavowed anything traditionally feminine. I hated pink, I hated dresses, I hated makeup and fashion and shopping, all of these things that might not have been necessarily true if I hated them or not. You know, I didn't really like shopping or wearing dresses. I was a very naturally sporty person and scientifically and mathematically gifted for my age. But simultaneously, there are traditional elements of femininity that I did like, and that obviously, given that I like wearing makeup, is something that I do carry forward and that I don't currently disavow. But it was something that I felt that I needed to do in order to earn that respect. Essentially, I think that just comes back to the notion that femininity and everything that is concomitant with traditional definitions of femininity is less than masculinity, is considered less worthy, less worthwhile, and just diminished in importance and value by society itself. Obviously, this is pernicious for everyone, I think, because people aren't just manifestations or caricatures of just pure masculinity or pure femininity. We kind of equate this kind of amalgamation of traits and attributes and interests, and it's kind of incredibly harmful to both men and women and everyone, basically, because it's saying, you know, men, you can't have traditional feminine traits because that's emasculating, and that leads to, you know, difficulty with emotional expression or cognizance of your own emotional needs, or just men feeling like they can't even wear pink or things like that. Just if you associate with the feminine, you are automatically associating with something that is lesser than the masculine, and you'll be treated by society accordingly. I think for people that do embody traditional femininity or like things that are associated with traditional femininity, this correlates to having lower self-worth or the suppression of your true self, that you feel like you can't enjoy the things that you want to enjoy, that you can't express yourself to the fullest extent because that would mean articulating how much you like feminine stuff. So then having lower self-worth then can translate to the need to find external validation. And where do we look to find it? In men, in a sense, because men are deemed to be the arbiters of value and capable of imbuing you with respect and worth. And obviously that's completely untrue, but it's the way that a lot of people feel, and a lot of women specifically feel. And I think that's from where this pick-me mentality is derived. It's the desire for that respect, for that validation, for the ability to be raised or seen by society as something that isn't lesser for once. If a man, someone that has inherent value, chooses you, you must be capable of bringing some value to him and to his life. Why pick-me's exist to some capacity, and why they feel the need to kind of fight other women and put down other women, because they are struggling to attain this respect and this value from men, that they want to be the ones chosen. They want to be the one that feels validated and worthwhile. This internalized misogyny, obviously, it's horrible and incredibly pernicious for everyone, but I think to redress this, in a sense, this is why representation is so important, because growing up, I think media kind of informs and compounds our ideas of what constitutes a woman and what women are like. And commonly, I think, even still today, the presentation of a woman is just very nebulous. It's not deep, it's not complicated, and a lot of representation I've noticed has been like this false kind of idea of strength and what constitutes strength in a woman. And again, it's like this one-dimensional caricature, this Mary Sue, essentially, which is a whole nother discussion. I'll probably talk about that later, but the idea is they don't know how to write a woman as being a person, as having faults and being complicated and complex and having negative attributes and positive attributes and just being depicted as a person with the entirety of what humanity constitutes. And I think it's incredibly important to have that kind of diversity, not only in representation, but in the writing and in the creation of media to begin with, so that people, you know, have that decent representation because it's coming from someone who knows and is cognizant of what women embody, the entirety of who we are. It did affect me very profoundly not to be able to see growing up a good representation of a girl or a woman. It was very dichotomous. It was very much like pink and dresses and dancing and tutus and makeup, or the tomboy. So I associated with the tomboy. But it's a lot more complicated than that. People accrue a variety of different tastes and interests, and not to see that represented makes you feel like you have to choose one or the other. And in picking one, you disavow and undermine the other. We ourselves start to believe that this is who we are, that we are not like other girls, that other girls are this one-dimensional depiction that we see in media. And it's just not true, that we come to even believe that about ourselves. That's how disgustingly, like, prevalent that kind of mentality is, that we ourselves can think 99% of women out there are these, like, one-dimensional cardboard boxes that are just pure femininity and don't have any interest or brain or the capability of complex reasoning and thought. And you're like, but I'm not like that, so therefore I'm not like other girls. But that's not true. We are like each other and different than one another, and that's brilliant. Because I am more than my appearance and what my appearance suggests. I am more than what my gender suggests to you. I am more than what you perceive me to be on the basis of your one-dimensional understanding of gender. I'm more. We are more. That's why we need better representation. That's why it matters to young girls to see themselves in their complexity, to teach men that women and girls can know things that they know, that we can be just as brilliant as them, because I am like other girls. I don't need to be picked by a man to know that I have worth.